Southport, in other areas across Britain, both with, as I say, with rape gangs, also with protests, and with how people... And the point should be noted that, you know, some of the things that are being said by some of the people visiting these mosques are things like, you know, your woman... You can beat her if she disobeys you. You can control whether she goes out or not. Can you imagine if that was anyone else saying anything like that? And yet, here we are, people tiptoe around these things. And I think this is the other thing, right? I think that in Britain, you know, because people get this whole thing mixed up between the Islamicist threat and racism. And I'm often having these conversations with people. I think, you know, Britain that's united around principles and values and a shared history and culture, including the Commonwealth and others of all colours, but we cannot allow an extremist moment to dominate our cities and our streets. And that's what's happened. And frankly, there's lots of evidence of this chief doing a number of different things that sort of presents itself as being a situation that's heavily biased, and the fact that they haven't even come clean on it, but it's done like this, is a problem. I think the public are really concerned about some of these ideas of no-go areas in our country, and they've got to get dealt with.
Yeah, look, I think on the Jewish point, you're completely right. I would like to think that Britain is broadly a safe place for Jewish people, and I think we should make that a priority. And I was really sad to see that the Maccabee fans were banned in the first place, because I don't think that sets a very good precedent. I know we have to be careful not to conflate Jewish people and Israeli people, but it's not the way I want to see things go. I would also... Go on.
I was going to say, one thing that has come out of this, actually, is that I think Labour have made absolutely the right decision to get rid of PCCs. Yeah. Because we've got this absurd situation where the Home Secretary can say in the House of Commons she doesn't have confidence in this Chief Constable. There's nothing she can do about it.
Yeah, and look, I think we can call them a failed experiment. All credit for giving it a go and trying to democratise policing, but it hasn't really had the impact. Turnout in the elections is always so low, and most people, I think, wouldn't be able to name their PCCs. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too sad to see the back of that as a role.
Well, also, potentially, the PCCs have actually politicised policing by creating a party political system that's in charge of the police. Anyway, we'll have to leave it there. But coming up, do stay with us, the government has finally published Britain's abortion statistics, revealing a record 300,000 pregnancy terminations in 2023. So we're asking, why is Britain's abortion rate so much higher than that of other European countries? Stay with us.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
The weather's looking unsettled across much of southern Europe as we go through this weekend. Heavy rain affecting parts of Portugal, around the outskirts of Spain as well. Some significant snow building up over the Pyrenees. Even further east, in other parts of the Mediterranean, hefty showery downpours with the risk of some thunder. And worth bearing in mind, strong gusty winds are going to lead to some rough seas as well. Staying pretty unsettled for some places as we go into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Hello, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Could be quite a murky night ahead as the winds ease, the clouds going to lower, leading to some mist and fog in places as well. That's because the low pressure just to the west of us, that's filling, becoming less intense. So the blustery winds that we've had through today, well, they're going to be dropping out. There will still be some outbreaks of rain around, particularly around some eastern parts of Northern Ireland, and then feeding northwards up through parts of England and Wales, and later pushing into areas of southern Scotland as well. But many areas actually staying largely dry. A lot of cloud though, and as I mentioned, that cloud could be lowering, leading to some mist and fog and some murkiness. And even where we don't get that lowering cloud, clear spells could allow for a touch of frost and also some patches of fog to develop in other spots as well. So a bit of a grey, murky start across central and eastern parts of southern UK, a bit brighter perhaps across parts of Wales and the southwest of England. Lots of cloud, few outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and northern England, and similar across southern and eastern parts of Scotland. It's across northern Scotland where we're likely to have the clearest skies overnight and the brightest skies to start, but as a result, the greatest chance of some frost and some fog, maybe even freezing fog patches here as well. Through the day, there will be further outbreaks of rain around, perhaps a bit heavy at times in a few spots. All of that making its way northwards. Could see some sleet and snow over the high ground of Scotland, but that's going to become less of a thing as we go through the day. And then otherwise, well, some dry weather, even some bright sunny skies here and there. But worth noting, if you're stuck under the cloud, which could linger all day, it's going to feel pretty cold indeed. Through into Sunday, and there's a chance of a swathe of wet weather pushing its way northwards across much of England, Wales and later into eastern parts of Scotland. Otherwise, it could be quite a grey, cloudy, murky start yet again, with a lot of fog in places too. Into next week, and there's more changeable weather to come. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M4 westbound, expect slow going between junction 24 Coldra and junction 26 Malpas. On the M60 clockwise, congestion is building between junction 10 and junction 11. In South Gloucestershire, a crash is affecting the M4 westbound exit slip at junction 19, with one lane shut. The A75 at Lockfoot is closed after an incident. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway and Thameslink have major disruption between Bedford and London St Pancras International, plus delays between Crewe and Stoke-on-Trent, and London Bridge and London St Pancras International. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Miriam Cates. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock, we've got the co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and Labour commentator, Seb Salek. And thank you for getting in touch with all your views. Lots of comments about Craig Guilford, who has taken retirement rather than being sacked from West Midlands Police. Howard says Craig Guilford should not have been allowed to retire. The Police and Crime Commissioner should have sacked him for gross incompetence. And Paul says that the West Midlands Police Chief should have his pension taken away for lying, the lies that he told about why the Maccabi fans should not be allowed to visit Birmingham. Well, moving on now, after an inexplicable 18-month delay, the latest UK abortion statistics have been published by the government. During 2023, which is the most recent year for which the data is available, 299,614 pregnancy terminations were performed in the UK. This figure represents the highest annual number since abortion was legalised in 1968 and an 11% increase from the previous high in 2022. Well, the rise has been blamed by some on the cost of living crisis, but others point to the sharp upward trend in abortion numbers since the Pills by Post scheme was introduced in 2021. This scheme allows women to gain access to abortion drugs without a face-to-face appointment. Well, the new stats raise questions about the link between low birth rates and high immigration, because since 1968 there have been 10.9 million abortions in the UK. Meanwhile, there are now 10.7 million foreign nationals living in the country. So the question is, how can we increase Britain's birth rate? Seb, let's start with you. These numbers are absolutely phenomenal. When abortion was introduced in 1968, the idea was that it would be rare for people in particularly dire situations. But now it is a form of contraception. 1 in 3 pregnancies, roughly, in the UK end in abortion. And we have far too few babies to sustain our population. What is going on here?
Yeah, economically, big problem, isn't it? I mean, I think what's so interesting about this is how it's linked to so many other issues. The economy, housing, immigration, all of these come together and affect each other. Because if we're not building enough houses, people aren't going to be able to move in and have families. If they can't afford to, as you say, they can't do it. And if you don't have enough babies, you have to bring in more immigrants to do the jobs. It's just the way it goes. And I don't think that's a healthy pattern to fall into. What is sad now is that having children is feeling like a luxury, certainly for my generation.
Yep.
I think we're going to see a massive rise in people not having children, a massive rise in one-children families because they can't afford to have more. And the ultimate status symbol really is going to be having multiple children because you can afford to keep them. Huge problem. What I will say, though, is that I'm pleased that those who feel they need to have an abortion are able to access it, and access to abortion care has become much more available, even after 22, when we made home care permanent. I think that was an important step.
But is it now too available, Alan? I mean, if you look at the number of abortions per capita in this country, or per capita of women, obviously, of childbearing age, we're on something like 24 per 1,000. The Germans, it's 6 per 1,000, a quarter of the rate. German society is just as liberal, just as democratic, just as gender equal as we are. The French are on 16. We are the abortion capital of the West, and we are the only country that allows this pill-by-post scheme where you don't even have to have a face-to-face appointment. Have we gone too far?
I think my personal view is that it's very important that women have the ability to make decisions, and they're not flippant decisions, in my opinion, about their future and what that means. Now, that's a big debate for public and society, and as we saw in America, that Roe versus Wade was never really won, actually. It was done on a different basis, on personal conscience, rather than the actual issue of termination or abortion or not. And I think those discussions are very important in society, and they should be thrashed out. I will say a couple of things about this. One is that I think one of the problems we've had for quite some time is the sense that what is Britain worth, what is the world worth, what is society worth, what kind of world we live in. It's terrible, it's toxic, it's mad, bad and dangerous. When you have a worldview like that, who wants to bring kids into it? That's been part of a discourse that's been serious. There's also the economic issue, and both BPAS and the Royal College of Obstetricians has noted those points, that everything to do with, as Bastian said, you know, housing and costs. But in the past, people were poor and they had children, right? So, you know, if we look back at the past and we look at, like, you know, in the run-up to the Second World War and beyond, people didn't go, oh, I'm skint, I won't have kids. Actually, quite the reverse. So that sense of
But they didn't have abortion on demand. That was the difference.
Well, it's not that. I think what it was...
Well, why isn't it that?
Well, I tell you why. Because I think they had a couple of reasons. One, sometimes children died, and terribly, that was the situation. But also because there was a feeling of a positivity sense in the future. There was bigger families. There was a sense that we were building something and going somewhere as a society. And when you live in a world where people think we're just consuming, we're just rabidly destroying the planet, you get taught at school that everything we do is just putting pressure on society, we're evil, we're mad, bad and dangerous, we have to be care one another. Young people aren't often even having sexual relations for fear of being accused of things or just not wanting it to do it. And one really interesting thing is the over 35s here, because some of them are mothers already.
Over half of people having abortions.
That's right, up 88%, I think. It's a really significant number. And the thing is that things are expensive, right? Property's expensive, we need to address that. We've also got a lot of older people and far few younger people. And the question about the multicultural question, but also the question about people having children here. I think a society that's healthy, that believes in itself and knows where it's going, wants to create children and provide families for them. And I think that's partly what we've got to get back to, a sense of the future, what we can all do together around shared values. And that will deal with some of those things.
Seb, do you think Britain values children?
That's a really good question. I certainly think it's... I mean, I think back to when I was a child, and it was kind of nominally hard. I think it's probably got harder, just as the level of hope has drained away and as the impact of the financial crisis of 2008 has lingered. I can see how, from a child's perspective, they may not feel that.
But I guess I don't really mean that. I mean, in Britain, do we see having children as one of the foundational goods of our society?
I think we're quite open to either option. You know, I see so many people around me who are of the age where they might start a family, and more are saying that they don't want children, and that's not an economic decision, that is a personal decision because of the way they want to run their lives. So on that basis, you might argue that we are valuing that less, but I think what's most important is choice. If you want to have a child, you should be able to have one.
On an individual level, of course, that is true. But when 300,000 citizens each year are lost in this country, and when we have a birth gap of a third between the number of babies that we're having and the number of babies that we need just to pay for taxes and pensions, then actually this is a national problem. This isn't an individual problem anymore. This is a huge threat to our country.
Yes, but you're asking people to take on huge personal responsibility to be able to solve it. It's akin with a war effort, isn't it? You're changing your life entirely.
But that, I think, is the key question, because coming back to what you were saying about essentially individualism, in the past you had a child and you expected the whole community to help you raise it. Now we expect biological parents to do everything on their own, to take all the risk, not to require any help, and I think that's what's putting people on.
It's a big challenge. You know, we've had a number of things happen. On the one hand, it's been important that women could get into the workplace and get paid similarly to men. The problem is both a woman and a man, if it happens to be that, you've got to say these things as well, because not even that's a thing that's assumed anymore. But if it is a woman and a man, or a man and a man, they're not not earning the same money that a man used to earn if you go back 30 years to pay for a family and do it. So people are working harder generally and they're not able to provide for the family. So that's about economic growth and sluggishness. There's also the question of families and what happens, and the idea that, oh, you know, it's like a lifestyle choice. Maybe I will be in a family, maybe I won't, or leaving it later because you want to do a career. These are all choices. But the question of the role of the family in society is important. The moral education of children and the role that exists within the fabric of our society, they're essential and they're key. And I don't know if this is going to link to the question about what's going on with schooling as well that we've been looking at, but I think that we've also got an issue. I don't think it should be incumbent. It shouldn't be forced on anyone, right, a woman or a man, to have children. But at the same time, any society more generally that's going to be serious about its future is going to need to be serious about the next generation and how they come and what we do with them. So it is an enormous question for us.
Well, I think Hungary is an interesting model on this because they haven't changed their abortion law at all. They haven't increased any restrictions, and yet they've drastically reduced their abortion numbers by talking up parenthood, talking up motherhood, tax breaks for women, tax breaks for married couples, and it's certainly made an impact on the abortion rate. So, very interesting example. Well, coming up, the deadline has now passed for local councils to delay elections in May. 4 million people could miss out on the chance to vote, and hundreds of councillors will avoid the risk of being voted out. Don't go away.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow. We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No, because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Miriam Kate. It's Friday night, which means we're in the Dewberry Tavern. Cheers. Hope you have a great weekend. I'm Miriam Kate, and keeping me company until 7 o'clock, I've got my panel, Alan Miller and Seb Salek, who are still here discussing the issues of the day. Well, our final topic of the evening, the government is expected to cancel at least 27 council elections, meaning a staggering 4 million people will be denied the right to vote and hundreds of councillors will avoid the risk of being voted out. While delaying or cancelling elections is typically reserved for a war or a global pandemic. But this time it's because of the former Deputy PM, Angela Rayner, who proposed the plans to recognise local councils. Well, the local government secretary, Steve Reid, who took over from Angela Rayner, has defended the plans, saying that it's not denying democracy.
And it's not denying democracy. You know, I believe strongly.
That's what critics say, though. They say it is.
Of course they do, but they're wrong. They're wrong. It's speeding up elections to the new councils that will replace the councils that are being closed down. And I think that is sensible. We're looking at councils that will be there for the long term. Any elections that are delayed, it will be for a year. The elections would take place to the new councils we anticipate in 2027. But it does mean we can fix the problems that people are seeing in their streets faster, and that is why, after all, people take part in these elections.
So let's bring in the panel. Seb, I've spoken to a number of Labour voices on this over the last couple of weeks, and they've made a very pragmatic argument that elections are expensive, and so if there's going to be reorganisation in a year or so's time, why spend taxpayers' money on this election? But isn't that kind of putting a price on democracy, which we probably shouldn't be doing?
I don't buy that. And do you know what? If you'd asked me this a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have trotted out, oh, you know, it's not ideal, but in the grand scheme of things, it's worth doing. I feel even more strongly about this now because there's a growing consensus that politicians of all colours have held off difficult decisions because of minor inconveniences. And that's a big part of the reason we're in the general state that we're in as a country. And I think this is an example of the opposite. It's saying, no, we will take the political hit, we will deny the election, we will let Farage do all of this shouting about denying democracy because we want to introduce this local government reform and we think it's going to be worth it in the long run, resident into what happens in your local area.
But it would be possible to have the elections. Yes, there'd be a cost, but we are a democracy. Surely the last thing we should stop spending money on is democracy.
Yes, the triumvirate, isn't it? It's call people far right, and then what you do is you jettison elections, you dispense with trial by juries, and you stop rights to repeal and magistrates. And I'm hoping that after the U-turn on digital ID, but we know it's not entirely, we're going to see the same thing for juries and for magistrates. This is absolutely outrageous. Let's just say it as it is, right? This idea, firstly, the moment about devolution and trying to get it out less and less outside Parliament and sovereign control and a discussion and thrashing it out. As we know, Keir Starmer, who says, do you prefer Davos to Westminster, to the cut and thrust of our politics? He says Davos. Outsourcing things because it's often too difficult to win them in Parliament, but getting them locally with, as it happens, some green billionaires and others who are always trying to promote and nudge and push those things like Chris Hone and Bloomberg and others. And we've seen that across our cities and towns with LTNs and other things. But the idea that right now, at this crucial moment in Britain, what you're going to do is dispense with 27 and maybe 64 elections. The British public sees this for what it is. The idea that the Labour Party and this government are somehow being, like, robust and diligent and thinking about implementing things, it's just, like, laughable. I've got to say,
for you, Alan.
Sebastian, I've got to just say it's
Go on,
laughable.
let me ask the question. Go on.
Do you think Robert Jenrick should face a by-election?
Ooh.
It's a good question. Do I think Robert Jenrick should face a by-election? I'm not fussed whether he does or he doesn't.
Would it not be the democratic thing to do?
I'm not fussed whether he does or he doesn't, but we're, at the moment, talking about the jettisoning of at least 27 elections and possibly 64. And it's being told to us that it's...
constituency in the East Midlands.
Just a minute, it's not about one person.
Democracy.
It's just not one person.
Because they haven't voted for a Reform MP.
So Steve Reid, who was destroying agriculture, and the Labour Party, who did something they promised they would not do, and did not do something in their manifesto on agriculture, has moved from agriculture and is now saying it's too expensive to have elections. You can try and make it about one person. I'm saying that...
Well, let's make it about a lot of people. Would you have advocated, Alan, for a second EU referendum?
I'll finish... You're joking.
Was that a no?
Well, hold on. My point is, I'm not going to get onto your point. My point about these elections is that the British public sees it for what it is. The British public wants change. We saw what happened in the last local elections. Come 7th of May, what's going to happen is it looks like Reform are going to win massive amount. Keir Starmer will probably go. Labour's petrified, and that's why they're doing it.
Right,
And you
so
know
I've
what?
given you
It's
two
obvious to
examples
people.
of times when it might be reasonable in the name of democracy to have a vote, and you've said you don't want them, but you want this one. So how is your view on this not politically motivated?
I don't think that's true. What do you mean?
Well, you're saying, I want the election where I think Reform might win, but if I've given you an option of a time when Remain might win or when Generic might lose, you were quite quick to say you didn't want
I love
those.
referendums.
Well, then why didn't you back a second referendum on the EU?
Because the point is that it was won overwhelmingly by the British public, and the attempt to keep going back...
I'm going to have to be terribly
rehash this argument.
autocratic and forbid you the chance to carry on in free speech because we are about to end the programme. But fascinating discussion, thank you. I'm sure the wine is better in Davos than in Westminster, which is probably why Keir Starmer prefers it. But thank you so much to my panel. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a fantastic evening. I'll be back on Monday morning with Andrew Pearce. But first of all, we've got your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. Could be quite a murky night ahead as the winds